Chapter 341, Brave Tony, Online Pit Brother. The giant sun slid behind Gotham's skyscrapers. Darkness crept into the luxury hotel suite and finally swallowed it whole. The crystal chandelier in the sitting room remained unlit. The only light came from Diana's truth lasso, coiled and glowing like some holy filament. The lasso, a divine artifact forged by the god of fire, unbreakable and merciless in its power, forced anyone it bound to speak nothing but the truth. Leon wondered for a moment whether being bound by it would affect him. He'd reached an energy level comparable to a star. Surely an ancient earthly god's artifact couldn't subdue him. Still, comic book logic was notoriously unreliable, so he stayed cautious. It wasn't him in the hot seat. It was Tony. Poor, brave Tony. Tony had slipped into a corner of the living room, taken Jarvis's hint, and set himself up as audience. He used nanomaterials to build a makeshift recliner, poured a cup of coffee, and waited with eager anticipation. He was ecstatic, so much so that crow's feet formed at the corners of his eyes. When Leon was young, he always sabotaged Tony's attempts at good deeds. Tony saw this as payback. Maybe if he stirred the pot a little now, when the girls were about to question Leon, he could even things out. What he expected was a messy, jealous showdown. Tony had plenty of experience juggling two female companions at once. Sometimes one stormed out in a huff. Sometimes both turned more obsequious under the onslaught of his money and charm. But this, with both women sitting calmly across from Leon and actually listening to him, Tony had never seen anything like it. Diana and Kara sat opposite Leon. Neither looked particularly angry. Both kept asking practical questions, mostly about whether Leon had other girls waiting for him and whether he could take responsibility for all of them. So Leon began to tell his story. He started from the early days in his universe, awakening his bloodline, planning to sunbathe in space for 2.5 years, rescuing widow operatives from the Red Room, and saving the biohazard world. He continued through encounters with Hydra, Dormammu, and the Skrulls. It was a long string of exploits, delivered with the quiet confidence of someone describing things that had happened. When he finished, the girls were no longer angry. They stared at him, eyes wide and almost shining. Tony felt a jolt of horror. Of course, what girl could resist the idea that the man she liked was a savior, a great hero? They'd all fallen for Leon's story. Tony slapped his forehead. He had to do damage control. He sprang up. "Girls, you're missing the real issue," he announced, righteous and theatrical. He went straight for Leon's weak point. All that stuff Leon did in the past, fine, he saved the world. But does that make it right for him to deceive your feelings? And what if he's saving other worlds? That has nothing to do with you, Tony pressed on, earnest. You should ask him properly which one of you he's going to choose. He adopted a self-sacrificing look and sat back down, already grinning to himself. The two women's expressions shifted, exactly as he'd hoped. Tony took another sip of coffee, watching the three of them through the steam, feeling very pleased. Then, before the sip had even reached his throat, he almost spat it out. "But Leon didn't just save the world," Diana said softly, tilting her head. "He saved me." "Me too," Kara agreed. "Leon rescued me from the lead house." Tony couldn't stay composed. Diana, who had heard him earlier, met Leon's eyes with a touch of demand. "Mr. Stark is right," she said calmly. "Leon, why have you attracted so many girls?" Leon lowered his head and sighed. It was a sigh full of wounded dignity, as if he were the most wronged person in the room. The two women's hearts tightened at once. Covering his cheek with one hand, Leon spoke in a tone of deep sorrow. "It's all because of my brother. It's because of Tony." "What?" Tony blurted, stunned to be implicated. Leon went on, weaving his tale. "I was adopted. After my adoptive parents died, Tony raised me. He loved me so much he took me everywhere. When he went to parties to pick up beautiful women, he'd hang me around his neck. When things got heated, he'd set me aside to watch." Tony froze. He thought, dimly, with rising embarrassment, had he really left Leon with Jarvis to watch? He felt the color drain from his face as Diana and Kara's expressions softened even more. "You can see how childhood leaves its mark," Leon continued. "Diana grew up on stories about gods. She wanted to be a hero from the start, to resolve Ares' conflicts and bring peace. Kara's parents taught her kindness, so even after more than a decade of imprisonment, she remained merciful, unwilling to hurt innocent people in her vengeance. I was shaped too. I started remembering things very early, and my only parent was Tony. When I was 1 or 2, I didn't understand what could happen between men and women at night. I just remember Tony bringing strange women home night after night. The next day, they'd leave with either sadness or happiness. From then on, a thought sprouted in my heart. All the girls in the world are so pitiful. I can't just take care of them for one night like Tony. I want to try my best to let everyone greet life with a smile. It was a complete fabrication. Leon, a transmigrator, had a mature mind even as a child and had spun the story to tug at their emotions. But the content struck a chord. All 3 listeners accepted it as plausible. Tony, for once, could only stare, a prick of regret and self-reproach forming in his chest. Maybe he had set a bad example after all. Jarvis, ever the blunt butler, couldn't help himself. "Sir, from the perspective of family education, you have indeed been negligent," he said. Tony laughed awkwardly, pretending to drink his coffee while hiding his face behind the cup. Chapter 342, Tony Zhang. "Jarvis, please cremate me." Tony's guilty expression only made Leon's accusation seem truer. Diana looked at him, incredulous. "Your brother, this Mr. Stark, is really that awful?" Kara said nothing, but her look toward Tony had turned openly scornful. Tony could no longer pretend. He kept denying it. No, it's a misunderstanding," and bolted to his feet, clearly wanting to escape the humiliation. Then something in his thoughts shifted. He wasn't the type to chase every woman. He had Pepper. Didn't that make him a devoted boyfriend, a model guardian? Besides, he'd kept Leon on a tight leash. Those girlfriends in high school were dealt with a few payments and quietly dismissed. Didn't that prove he'd been a good guardian? Half of his shame evaporated at the thought. To save face, and to annoy Leon, Tony put on a righteous tone. "Leon, I only have Pepper. Calling me a philanderer doesn't make your own behavior any better." Diana and Kara, unused to the subtleties of bluffing, were taken in by Tony's bravado and turned their suspicious looks back to Leon like 2 amateur relationship counselors on TV. Diana, however, was different. She had a way of knowing lies. Her hand went unconsciously to the truth lasso at her waist. Leon saw it and took the initiative. "Tony, how could you say that?" he asked, an affected indignation in his voice. He'd faced pretenders before, Ancient One, Odin, and picked up a few theatrical tricks. "Don't you feel the least bit guilty? Do you realize what a trauma it was for me to see you 2 embracing every day when I was a kid?" His words were true enough to sting. Then Leon ordered, "Diana, put on the truth lasso." "Truth lasso?" Diana blinked, then watched as Leon lunged, pinned Tony to the floor, and signaled, "Tie him up! I want to know if this brother feels even a little guilty." Tony protested wildly. "What are you doing? We solve problems with words, not violence." But Diana obeyed, securing the strange, bearded uncle in the lasso's constraints. "We're interrogating a suspect," Leon declared. "Now tell me in detail how many cover girls you dated when I was young, and give a self-reflection of no less than 1,000 words." Tony sneered and opened his mouth, intending to throw past affairs back at Leon, Jill, Ada, Wanda, but the lasso had its will. What spilled from him was a decade-long, unvarnished catalog of relationships, the first flush of excitement, the casual enjoyment, the slow drift into habit. He recalled slender waists and long legs, hips that swayed like waves, details that painted him more as lecherous than romantic. At first, Tony's face showed panic, then an expression of loss. Resistance was written all over him, but the words coming out were unstoppable, humiliatingly candid. Diana and Kara listened in disbelief and growing contempt. Then, as he continued, Tony's tone shifted. He admitted real guilt. After Mr. and Mrs. Howard died, he'd grown decadent and neglected Leon. That neglect had allowed many terrible things to happen. His face finally matched his confession. Genuine remorse and regret. Hearing that, Diana and Kara softened. Tony might have been promiscuous, but at least he wasn't irresponsible toward Leon. After Tony finished, Diana removed the truth lasso. The 2 girls wholly believed Leon's account. "It's not your fault, Leon," Diana said, squeezing his hand. "You grew up in a terrible environment." "You still turned out upright," she added. "You're the real hero." Leon accepted the praise with a small, quiet nod. Inside, he thought he'd always wanted to be called a hero. He'd even had a similar déjà vu with Homelander, but he pushed that aside. "I understand," he said, holding Diana's hand back. Seeing the truth of life and still loving life, that's real bravery. Diana, when you come to the human world and see people for what they are, you'll be the same. Diana's image of him firmed in her eyes. Kara watched the pair in silence. When Leon gently took her hand too, surprise and warmth showed on her face. "That's enough. My confession is over," Leon announced. "It's late. Go get some sleep." He walked Kara back to her room, sent Diana to his, and wrapped the house in his biofield. Only Tony remained in the large, dim living room, lying blankly on the sofa. Moonlight slipped through the French windows and painted his face pale, as if he were crying. "Jarvis, what did I just say?" he asked, staring at nothing. Jarvis replied, clinically amused. "Sir, you recounted in detail the women you dated over the past decade, followed by a heartfelt confession. If you want to confess again, I can be a temporary priest and tell you God will forgive you," Jarvis offered. "No," Tony said hollowly. "Book me a grave near Gotham. I think I should be cremated now." "Certainly, sir. Would you prefer a private mausoleum or a standard city cemetery?" Jarvis asked with programmed consideration. Tony muttered to himself, "I'm so stupid. I shouldn't have tried to expose that kid. He always drags me down." The next morning, everything felt painfully ordinary. Leon took Kara and Diana out into Gotham to experience the human world. Diana was naive and romantic. She shrieked and ran to peer at a baby in a stroller and tried a dress by lifting her leg high to test whether it would hinder combat. Leon patiently explained customs and etiquette. Kara was calmer, curious but reserved. When she tried on a dress, she'd look to Leon for approval and then hand the sales assistant the payment matter-of-factly. Tony, repentant in his own way, had given Leon his credit card so the two girls could be taken out of sight. He and Jarvis had scraped together legitimate income from the internet, and Tony wanted them occupied and happy. Outside, the world seemed at peace. The Kryptonian danger was resolved. The Third World War had been averted. Batman had returned to Wayne Manor and taken up a quieter life. Barry Allen had finally convinced his parents he was their son and returned home. With Leon's super hearing, nothing in the immediate future sounded like a calamity. He planned to take the mother box when he left. That would tidy things up. Then, while Diana queued for cake, Leon froze. A vision snapped into focus. Chains of law, threads of time and space, appeared and started to fracture. They split, then knitting themselves back together. "No," Leon breathed. "It wasn't destruction. It was a reset." He understood why. In this universe, there was only one culprit. "Barry's resetting the world again," he said, narrowing his eyes. Chapter 343, Restart Prelude. "Barry, what are you doing, Barry?" Leon's head felt like it had been struck. Discovering that the world was restarting crashed his brain the way a robbery would ruin a night out. One moment you were eating hot pot and singing, the next you were empty-handed on the roadside. Nothing about it made sense. He looked toward Central City. His vision pierced thousands of kilometers and stopped on Barry, at home, helping his mother cook. Barry smiled, eyes full of fondness for her. How could someone like that be restarting the world? And besides, Barry was right there. Who then was doing it? Leon could feel time itself splintering and reshaping. If time were a river, the upstream was drying up while the downstream flooded. The section where he stood could only wait for the water level to fall to the lowest point, exposing the riverbed. The fish in that stretch would die. New fish would be born when new water flowed in. From that perspective, the most likely cause was a catastrophe in the future Earth. A world that had lost most of its superheroes couldn't cope with whatever disaster had come, so a future Barry had changed the past, restarted the timeline. Restarting time in the DCEU wasn't like Marvel's branching timelines. Here, a restart didn't create a new branch. The previous time and everyone in it would disappear, or be refreshed. Like slimes respawning at a set point in an online game. The old slime dies, a new one with similar code appears, but it's not the same creature. Leon had no way to stop this. It had already begun. Trying to stop it would be like interrupting an OS reinstall. The system would just crash. He could have run next door and pulled Wolf Superman into Golden Superman mode again, but that wasn't a safety switch you could flip at will. So Leon made his choice quickly. Take people and run. He called to Diana and Kara, who were sharing cake, and pulled them back into the hotel room. Tony lay on the sofa, sulking over what had happened the night before. He'd probably brewed for a long time. Long enough that years later he'd still stamp his feet and mutter a few curses about it. Are you doing your best Rose impression from Titanic, propping your head on the sofa and wriggling around? Leon stepped forward and slapped Tony. Time's urgent. Stop wiping your tears in secret, Miss Stark. We have to go. Tony sprang up. Go? What happened? Wait, what did you just call me? Sorry, I thought I saw a 30-year-old woman wriggling, and it freaked me out. Figured a female Tony from a parallel world had taken over your body. If I were a female Tony, I'd give you a proper slap, Tony said, and true to his dramatics, grabbed an arc reactor and flung it at Leon. Leon caught it. We have to go. Flash has restarted the world. If we don't leave, we'll be restarted with it. Barry, why would he restart the world? Tony frowned. How much time do we have? Diana's brow knitted. What do you mean, restart the world? Flash went back to change the past, Leon said. He reshaped the entire timeline. Time isn't linear, Leon continued. Even a small change creates a butterfly effect, rippling through past and future. It's happened once already, he said. In the last restart, it wasn't Kara who came to Earth, her cousin did. After the restart, Kara's cousin died. That was the result of the timeline changing. Kara's expression went still. Can we stop him? It's too late, Leon said. Tony's eyes darted to him. How many can you take with you? What can we save? Tony worried that Leon might only be able to take a few people. Much of life's meaning depended on memory. A world restart didn't just change destiny. It erased a person's trace and memories within that world. If Leon could take only Tony and Jarvis and leave these women behind to be restarted, any future reunion would mean nothing. The shared experiences would be gone. You worry too much, Leon said. I can take many. A small mountain of people like you? No problem. Tony relaxed a little. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Come on, Miss Leon. Leon shook his head. There are things to do. The universe is vast. Restarting takes time. How long? What else do you need to do? Maybe 10 minutes more. Time's chain reaction starts from the far future and the far past. It'll be a little while before it reaches here. Diana looked stricken. Her mother and tribe were in the Black Sea on the opposite side of the world. After a restart, would those familiar faces still be the people she knew? Leon reached out and took her hand. Don't worry, I can travel between worlds so I can avoid the effects of the restart. I'll take you all with me. Diana's bewilderment turned to hope. You mean, Paradise Island comes with us. Leon wiped her cheek with his thumb. I'll take you into my inner world first, then release you when it's safe. What's an inner world? Diana asked, curiosity pushing through her fear. I'll explain later. Leon folded the answers away for now and focused on getting them out of harm's path. He wove his world control power and pulled Tony and Kara into his inner world, then took Diana's hand and vanished from the hotel. Thousands of kilometers fell away in an instant. Leon brought them to Paradise Island and explained the situation. Queen Hippolyta considered it carefully. She asked several times whether their disappearance would affect the appearance of another Paradise Island after the restart. When Leon assured her it would not, she agreed, but not before reminding him of the Amazons' mission. Hippolyta had little fondness for humans, but the Amazons had always remembered their duty to protect the world. If their absence would leave the world unguarded, she would have refused and stayed. When the other Amazon warriors, steadfast and strong, declined to insist on staying, Hippolyta consented to Leon's plan. Leon took them all, Paradise Island included, into his inner world. The divine power left by Zeus was no match for him. With a focused effort, he detached the whole island from the continental shelf. He felt something like awe at the Amazons' willingness to forsake their post for the greater good. They left Paradise Island safely in his inner world. His next destinations were clear: Gotham and Central City. He needed Batman and the Flash. Chapter 344. Take Barry's mom away. As expected, Batman turned down Leon's offer to hide from the reboot. He didn't think fleeing into another post-reboot world would help. All the Bruce Waynes were Batman. Their experiences were the same. Traveling to another world wouldn't give him living parents. Leon insisted there were timelines where Bruce died and the Waynes survived, but after a moment's thought, Bruce refused. Fine, Leon said. It's not a bad thing to stay, be someone who knows the truth and guards the world's past. He nodded toward the wine cabinet. By the way, a fearless moment like this calls for something high proof. Like rectified spirit, water of life, its strength burns from toes to skull. Leon grinned. Batman glanced at the cabinet and the record player. Good suggestion. I'll put on Tchaikovsky's Sixth. Leon raised an eyebrow. How appropriately mournful. Goodbye, Bruce. Goodbye, Leon. Leaving Wayne Manor, Leon went to Central City and found Barry Allen at home, eating spaghetti with his mother. Barry, you rebooted the world again. Do you know that? Barry looked up, bewildered. What? Me? Why would I reboot the world? He pushed the table back in panic and stood. You'll have to ask your future self. The one who rebooted things came from the future. Without making any fuss, Leon took a drop of Barry's blood and slipped it into his inner world, feeding it to the blacklight clone. Barry didn't notice. He only stared, wild-eyed. You mean I, my future self, ran back and changed everything? Why? He was living a quiet life now, his mother alive, his father not in prison. There was no reason to reboot the world unless something worse had happened. Oh, right, Barry blurted. Steppenwolf. It must be Steppenwolf again. He paced, despair in his voice. Without Superman, who else stops him? It's over. It's all over. Leon watched him unravel, feeling a measure of helplessness. Why don't you go into the Speed Force and ask him? Versions of you can meet there. In this world, the Speed Force had a time bowl that allowed speedsters to step outside time and meet different temporal versions of themselves. Barry straightened, a bolt of resolve crossing his face. He raised an arm and mimed an idea. You're right, I have to ask him, ask why he rebooted the timeline. He dropped into a short-track skating stance. Running that way in the Speed Force reduced stamina drain and bolted. I'm going. He vanished. Leon sensed Barry circle the street and then streak through time and out of sight. The Speed Force is handy, Leon muttered. Moments later, Barry burst back in, panting, and stopped in front of Leon. It's Darkseid, he gasped. My future self said you took the mother box, but Steppenwolf and Darkseid still came to Earth. Fear darkened his eyes. Darkseid drained the Earth's core. The whole world was destroyed. The Red Alliance, even with the globe's combined strength, couldn't stop him. No, he had to reboot the universe, to reverse what he'd done. Barry's voice broke. I can't save Mom. The cost of saving her is the world's destruction. Barry was young, barely a few years into his career at the lab. All he'd wanted was to undo his mother's brutal death. The Speed Force had given him hope, but hope had led to the unbearable knowledge that he couldn't both save her and save everyone else. Guilt and helplessness twisted his features. I'm sorry, it's all my fault, he whispered, jaw clenched. Leon put a hand on his shoulder. Maybe I can help in a small way. I can take your mother out of this world and keep her safe until the reboot finishes, he said. Then I can bring her back. Barry's head snapped up. Really? Yes, but you must tell your future self not to try to get your father acquitted by fiddling with a can of tomatoes to line up the camera. That kind of interference could trigger another reboot. Barry's mind flashed to the calamitous consequences of small changes. He'd won his father's freedom once by an odd camera angle trick, and that act cascaded into a universe-spanning reset. The DCEU collapsing into the DCU, heroes rebooted and replaced. He nodded vehemently. I will. I promise. Leon, please, take her now. Leon led Barry to the bedroom and reached into the sleeping woman's presence. He carried her into his inner world, safely removing her from the timeline. Barry watched his mother vanish and, for the first time in weeks, breathed. I'll tell my future self what you said, he promised, gratitude plain in his voice, and ran back into the Speed Force. Logically, Leon taking her out of the world's timeline could alter future events. But the world was already mid-reboot. That segment of time had begun to disconnect from the future. Changes there would no longer propagate in the way they once did. Barry didn't return after 10 seconds. Time moved on, and Leon didn't wait. He launched into the sky, heading for Philadelphia. To most people, Philadelphia was just an ordinary modern metropolis. In the DCEU, it was the gateway to the wizard's stronghold, known as the Rock of Eternity, the meeting place of Shazam and his lost siblings. In the comics, it was Fawcett City. In the Shazam film, it was shifted to Philadelphia. The Rock's master was the wizard Shazam, and he was old. His siblings had died long ago, and keeping the 7 deadly sins sealed within the rock grew harder with each passing year. Those 7 forces, manifestations of the cardinal sins, were terrible foes. In other timelines, they'd even bested a golden Superman of the future state, though here their power was, if anything, less absolute. Shazam needed a successor, a child with a pure heart and an iron sense of justice. He had searched for decades, even a century, but the right one had not appeared. He could have waited another 100 years if he had to, until today. Someone broke into the rock. A young man in a pitch-black battlesuit strode through the halls, stopping before the wizard. "Old wizard," he said, voice even, "the end of the world is coming. Do you want a successor or not?" Chapter 345. Old wizard, do you want an heir? How? How did you get in? Old wizard Shazam, who had been listlessly leaning on his stone chair, snapped his eyes open like a corpse pried out of a coffin. He glanced around instinctively. The familiar stone seat and the huge boulder confirmed he hadn't wandered out into the world in his sleep. But who was this intruder? For centuries, no one had entered this place without his invitation. Only the children he'd personally guided to the eternal rock could find their way here. This was his secret sanctuary. And yet the person standing before him had no key, no summons. He had simply walked in. "I am Lion Stark, and I'm a magic user," the newcomer said. When traveling, identities were often self-proclaimed. To Clark, he could be an Earthling with Kryptonian blood. To Shazam, he would be a magician. Lion drew a circle in the air with his right hand and opened a familiar, shimmering portal, the classic Kamartaj gateway. "See? That's how I came in." "There's a magic node in Philadelphia that links to the eternal rock," Lion explained casually. "I tried a rite, and it worked." His tone suggested it was as simple as opening a neighbor's door, because he happened to have the key. Shazam bristled inwardly. No one barged into the eternal rock uninvited, not without a reason. A mage capable of such a precise teleportation was no amateur. He rose from his stone throne, gripping the staff of the gods, and descended the steps with threatening purpose. "What do you seek here, stranger?" Shazam asked, looking down at him. "For thousands of years, countless evildoers have tried to free the demons sealed here. Every time, their fate was dust. Think carefully before you walk toward an irreversible ruin." Lion tilted his head, apparently cowed by the old man's words. Good, Shazam thought. This one might not be a fool after all. Then Lion spoke, but his voice carried a curious mix of patience and amusement. "No offense, Wizard Shazam, but were you spacing out just now? You didn't hear what I said when I came in?" Shazam blinked. He tried to recall, but something at the edge of his memory slipped away. "What did you say?" he asked, confused. "Say it again." Shazam descended the steps slowly, leaning on his staff. Lion, seeing the old man's mild confusion, assumed the courtesy of repeating himself. "The world outside is restarting," Lion said. "I've come to bring you an heir." Shazam's eyes brightened like a torch being lit. "You want to inherit my power?" he asked, the question half hope, half accusation. "Young man," he scolded with the gentle severity of the aged, "next time you speak to your elders, be clear." Shazam had lived for millennia. A small misunderstanding didn't embarrass him. It only sharpened his curiosity. He walked around Lion, his staff tapping the stone, his gaze inspecting the newcomer with growing interest. He hadn't seen anyone with such raw aptitude in a very long time. "Not bad. Very good," he murmured, stopping before Lion. The serious line around his mouth softened. "You want to inherit my power?" he asked again, though his voice now carried certainty. Lion felt examined, flipped like meat on a butcher's block. His whole being weighed for suitability. He started to answer, but Shazam cut him off. "I know," the old man said, as if he had already divined everything. "You found your way here from scraps in ancient tomes. Stumbling onto this place like that, remarkable." He climbed back up the steps, staff beating the stone in time. "Your potential is strong, but potential alone is not enough to inherit my power." Despite his words, Shazam's expression betrayed pleasure. He turned once more to study Lion. "Only those with a pure heart, firm will, and a sense of justice can become my successor." His voice faltered. The smile vanished from his face. "How can your mind be so impure?" A beat of silence. Then he pointed his staff at Lion, anger and disappointment flooding his features. "At your age and level of power, how can your thoughts be so tainted? As muddled as, he searched for a comparison, then spat out, as Caesar when he met the Queen of Egypt. Lion flushed. That was an accident, he said. He hadn't expected his private memory of a passionate night with Diana to be so plainly read. With the willpower he usually mustered, he would have passed any test, but this old man could see even a stray lingering thought. Alas, Shazam sighed deeply, there are no accidents in the world of magic. I regret to tell you, your mind is impure. You cannot be my successor. He recounted in a tone heavy with regret how 5,000 years ago he had chosen another, whose impurity led to madness and disaster when power came too easily. He waved a dismissive hand. Go, I will not entrust my power to someone with an impure heart. He turned and shuffled back toward his throne, the weight of his disappointment making his shoulders stoop. People of true purity and resolute will are rare, usually found only in children, he muttered. Lion's expression flickered between amusement and irritation. It sounded absurdly like a scene from an old cartoon. Only children, with infinite potential, could be chosen for great destinies. Wizard, Lion said, cutting through Shazam's reverie, I didn't come to be your heir. I came to bring you an heir. Shazam paused, then frowned. You don't want to be my heir? Why? Chapter 346. It's okay if the chapter is a little yellow, as long as it's not black. Just a moment ago, Shazam had declared Lion's intentions impure and said he couldn't be an heir. Now that Lion said he didn't want the power, Shazam was suddenly upset again. Lion spread his hands. Because there's a better choice. The old wizard believes that as long as someone is pure of heart, has a sense of justice, faith, and enough strength, they can take it, right? Lion said. Shazam frowned in confusion. That's right. Do you actually have candidates? You can't fool my eyes with an unsuitable person. Lion smiled. Do you think these two are suitable? With a thought, he pulled Diana and Kara out from his inner world. Shazam stiffened as he felt the spatial ripple. Lion had used teleportation magic. Regret flickered across Shazam's face. Someone capable of that level of magic, not being the next Shazam, seemed wasteful. Then he turned to the two women who'd appeared, and with one quick look, his brows tightened. Demigods? And another one. A faint light rose in Shazam's eyes and he realized Kara's identity. An alien, too. Lion's cross-world ability had linked him to the world consciousness when he traveled between universes. In this DC world, he also had an identity, a human Kryptonian hybrid. So by Shazam's standards, he could count as an Earthling. Still, Shazam shook his head. No, my power will only be passed to Earthlings. Shazam's power came from the ancient gods. He'd been entrusted with it to protect the people of Earth. How could he give it to demigods and aliens? Lion sighed. Wizard, if you don't pass on your power soon, you might not get the chance. Not get the chance? Are you threatening me? Shazam's brows shot up. Of course not. Lion sounded exasperated. This world is going to be reset, Wizard. I've told you twice. Reset? Shazam's face darkened. No god Shazam had known could reset the world. Lion explained briefly. Shazam's expression fell as he listened. Darkseid. Darkseid is behind this? Mage, will my successor appear on the future battlefield, or will I still be here with no successor? Who could blame him? For millennia he dozed on his stone throne, waking and sleeping through ages. Then suddenly a mage barges in saying the world will be reset. It struck at the core of him, like an ant building toward a brighter future, only to be crushed by a passing elephant. The thought stirred a long dormant anger in Shazam. Lion thought of the timeline where a new generation of Shazam arose long after Steppenwolf was defeated. In this world's future, without the Justice League's Big Three, Earth would likely be pulverized. No, Lion said. You probably won't have found a successor even after all the humans are gone. Shazam felt as if a knife had pierced him. He spun and slumped on his stone throne with a grim face. He couldn't sit still for long. He rose and paced the platform above the steps, breathing harder as his emotions churned. Lion watched in silence. Diana and Kara looked around, still trying to take everything in. After a while, Diana asked quietly, Who is this old wizard? Wizard Shazam. He holds your father's divine power, Lion answered. But he probably doesn't seem very old to you, does he? Diana rolled her eyes at Lion's clumsy phrasing. Kara asked, Are you trying to make me or Diana inherit his power? Why? Shazam's power is divine. Given to you, it could grant magic. covering a Kryptonian weakness, Lion said. If given to Diana, barring accidents, she'd complete her power and become a true god. Headrection to the comics. In Wonder Woman No. 7/98, Diana became a true god after gaining Shazam's divine power. As a god, Diana's potential was unleashed. Hera even fled from her. The two women felt their hearts skip a beat, but both quickly shook their heads. I don't need divine power. I can grow strong from sunlight. I don't need magic, Kara said. Pointing at Diana, Kara added, Diana has every right to that power. It's her father's divine power. Diana refused just as firmly. I've never wanted to become a god. Amazon blood runs in me. I'm an Amazon. I only want to protect Earth and its people. If it makes up for Kara's weakness, then Kara needs it more, Lion said with a shrug. You're both right, but whether you can take the power depends on Wizard Shazam, Lion added. From his perch above the steps, Shazam watched. He could tell when someone spoke from the heart. Both Diana and Kara were sincere. There was no falsehood in them. He fell silent, and when he looked at Lion again, his disappointment deepened. Their hearts are 100 times purer than yours, kid. Lion arched an eyebrow. Wizard, I can't accept that. My desire for power is pure too. If you call that impure, then your standards are off. My standards off? Shazam sounded surprised. He studied Lion for a long moment. A resolute heart, iron will, exceptional physique. Perhaps your accomplishments will not be beneath mine in the future. Lion neither agreed nor argued. He reined in the power within him. Otherwise, Shazam wouldn't have been able to say such a magnanimous thing. Old Wizard, it's time to decide, Lion urged. There are only a few minutes left before the world's reset ends. If you hesitate, you'll take your power into the next cycle. Shazam hesitated, frowning. You can escape the reset? I have a way, Lion nodded. Shazam paced a few more times. Finally, he sighed, descended the steps, and his face grew solemn. Tell me your name, mage. Lion slapped his forehead. Lion Stark, and these are Diana and Kara. He'd already introduced himself. Who introduces themselves twice in 5 minutes? If Lion had been anywhere else, he'd have been laughed out of the room. Still, Shazam's reply surprised him. Good, Lion. From today on, you are the next Shazam. He held out the staff of the gods. Now grasp the staff and shout, Shazam! Lion stared. Didn't you say my heart wasn't pure? Not pure, but acceptable. You're not dark, just a little greedy, Shazam admitted. Lion cut him off. All right, no need to psychoanalyze. I told you I don't want to become Shazam. Shazam didn't relent. I won't pass my power to any race other than Earthlings. That's my rule. Your rules don't concern me. Leon blinked and understood. He and Shazam reached for the staff of the gods together. They gripped it, and in the same breath shouted the name. Shazam! Chapter 347. Thumbs up to Zhang Sha. Shazam! Leon's shout and the crack of thunder arrived at the same instant. Lightning tore open the air and struck him. Old Wizard Shazam cleared his throat and, with the calm certainty of someone who'd been waiting a long time, designated the person before him as his successor. The divine power of 6 gods flowed into Leon. When the bolt finally faded, Leon's black battlesuit flashed and reformed into a vivid red. A long white cape with a wizard's hood settled over his shoulders. Isn't this color a little much? Leon muttered, raising an arm to inspect the suit. Tony would never spray his armor completely red. He could practically see himself as one of those 5-colored heroes from tokusatsu shows, yelling about justice and love. Then a thought struck him. Had his knack for whining just gotten stronger? Maybe this was Solomon's wisdom kicking in. Shazam ignored Leon's complaints and finished the ritual. He stared at Leon, raised the staff of the gods, and intoned in a voice that shook the chamber. From this moment, you shall inherit my name and my power. You are Shazam. Receive the power of Zeus, the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the courage of Achilles, the speed of Mercury, all of it. Be yours. When the rite ended, the old wizard handed Leon the staff. Remember, use your inner self to guide this infinite power, he said. Leon took the staff, but his head was full of pragmatic comparisons. In the main DC Comics universe, Shazam really can be that limitless. Characters there often scale to insane heights. In that world, Shazam and Black Adam have at times been shown at or near Superman's power level. In the comics, Superman's strength seems to match how strongly he believes he can be. That's why you see Shazam pulled into performances that defy sense. There were stories where Shazam and Black Adam shouted at the same time, and the lightning knocked out someone called Supreme Little Superman, a being supposedly capable of shattering an entire multiverse with one punch. That hints at a ridiculous upper bound, but the DCEU Superman? He's more grounded. His most extravagant on-screen feat was stopping tectonic plates from causing an earthquake, hardly multiversal. Even after his resurrection in Justice League, the showings were around planet-busting at best. So in this movieverse, Shazam's ceiling is probably planet level 2. Sensing the divine power within himself, Leon figured it out. With a firm psyche and enough mental control, he could probably wield the Shazam power well enough to threaten a planet, but his own baseline power was already star-shattering. In short, the wizard's power was a very nice bonus, and importantly, it could be shared. 7 stone thrones ringed the eternal rock. There had once been 7 wizards, Shazam and his siblings, so his power could be split into 6 portions for others to inherit. One portion had gone to Black Adam 5,000 years ago. Black Adam, having released the 7 deadly sins and slaughtered humanity, was sealed by the wizards. Because of that history, Shazam had always been picky. He chose successors based on purity of heart. Leon mulled this as the old man spoke again. "What are you staring at, kid?" Shazam barked, pointing to the stone thrones behind him. "Those are the seats of me and my brothers and sisters. My power must be passed on, and theirs must be too. Why are you hesitating? Start the inheritance now." It was a rough, booming voice, as if someone unused to company had grown hoarse from centuries of silence. Leon raised an eyebrow. Only Diana and Kara among those present were candidates to inherit, both humans by the old wizard's earlier standard. Yet here he was, suddenly in a hurry to distribute power. So much for inflexible principles, they could apparently stretch when convenient. Leon suspected Solomon's wisdom had loosened the old man's moral rigidity. "If you don't mind, I can start right away," Leon said casually. He stuck the staff in the ground and gestured toward Diana and Kara. "Put your hands on the staff and shout the old wizard's name." Shouting the name Shazam was the transformation trigger. Say it once and you become Shazam. Say it again and you revert. It could be risky in combat if you were caught mid-transformation. Batman had exploited that before. Diana and Kara exchanged a glance, and since the power could be shared and wasn't exclusive, reluctance faded. They stepped forward and placed their hands on the staff. "Wait," the old wizard blurted suddenly. He turned his back and proclaimed at the top of his lungs, "I know nothing. I see nothing." It was an oddly candid attempt at feigning ignorance, so blatant it was almost honest. Leon couldn't help but think the old man had developed a thick hide over the millennia. In shamelessness, he ranked right up there with Odin or the Ancient One. "Ignore him. Just say it," Leon said, rolling his eyes. Diana and Kara nodded and shouted in unison, "Shazam!" 2 silver-white bolts of lightning raked through the chamber. Magic lanced the darkness as both women received a portion of the wizard's power. Kara's Kryptonian battlesuit flashed and reshaped into a deep sapphire blue, a glowing lightning sigil forming on her chest. "I don't feel much," Kara said, pressing at her arm. Kryptonians tend to have low resistance to magic compared to their physical durability, and Kara had never really faced magic before. Her inheritance was clean and simple, an energetic presence now humming inside her, but no dramatic alterations to her senses. Diana's change, in contrast, was spectacular. After the lightning subsided, she floated effortlessly into the air. Her eyes closed as tiny currents of electricity danced across her skin, multiplying and brightening with each passing second. The instant the lightning engulfed Diana, a golden light burst from her like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. It pierced the lightning and filled the entire cave. "Ah, ah!" Diana roared, as if shattering some unseen barrier. The brilliant gold on her skin intensified, condensing until her whole form was suffused with a sacred radiance, an angelic descent. Her cry shifted into a clear, long note, like a bird newly freed from chains, shaking off dust and soaring once more. Diana floated, calling out. The sound slowly faded and the golden glow receded, revealing the true form it had been hiding. Her red and blue Amazonian armor had changed into a dark gold battlesuit, every piece from tiara to greaves a deep burnished gold, humming with mysterious power. She swept an arm through the air, and her cape snapped loudly. She drifted down to the floor and smiled at Leon. The cave, which had seemed dim moments before, brightened several shades. Old wizard Shazam, who had turned his head back, spoke in a solemn voice. She has become a true god. Leon stared at Diana, dumbfounded. The style of her armor tugged at a memory. Diana, did you just become some kind of Saint Seiya? He blurted, unable to resist the joke. Diana blinked. Saint Seiya? She repeated. Sounds like a very high compliment for a warrior. Are you praising me? Leon rubbed his chin. Of course. You don't just look like one. You've gotten a lot stronger, right? Diana nodded. A portion of Zeus's divine power merged with me. I've changed from demigod to full god. She spoke of being a god calmly. Whether demigod or full god, she was still Diana, and her duty to protect mankind in the world would not change. Shazam, however, frowned and stared at her. So you are Zeus's daughter, he said, teeth grinding. He had wrested divine powers from deities before. He'd barred even the gods from entering the human world, and he'd never expected any of that power to return to Zeus's bloodline. If it had gone to some other demigod, it wouldn't be so worrying, but Zeus's daughter held terrifying potential. Shazam's warning was stern. Even if you're a true god now, your power comes from that boy. If he has it taken back, even if you don't revert to demigod, you will be weakened. Don't do anything that harms humanity. Diana bristled at being doubted. I am from the Amazon, she said. My duty has always been to protect humankind. Wizard, keep your suspicions, but one day you will see you were wrong. Shazam's eyes flickered. He could read lies. There was no falsehood in Diana's oath. The Amazon, he murmured. No wonder. Leon chimed in quickly. Old wizard, don't worry about Diana. Even if humanity betrayed the Earth, she wouldn't betray humanity. I guarantee that. He turned to Kara. Diana's become a full god, but what about you? How do you feel, Kara? Kara looked away from Diana's new form with a small, envious shake of the head. I think that outfit is a little unfortunate. Can I change back by shouting Shazam? Before she could finish, a lightning bolt struck, and she reverted to her Kryptonian battlesuit with a flash. So it's not just me who thinks it's odd, Leon said with a smile. I'm asking about how your power has changed. Kara nodded and whispered, Shazam again. Her form shifted back. She clenched her fists. My strength doesn't seem to have changed much, but I feel more energized. Even without sunlight here, I lose almost no power. So, endurance? Leon was intrigued. That might be the perfect divine power for you. Kara glanced at him. Leon didn't spell it out. Instead, he produced a small palm-sized box, tapped its side, and the nanomaterial casing seemed to dissolve like quicksand. In his hand lay a chunk of green kryptonite. Kara's face, normally impassive, tightened. Green kryptonite. It weakens Kryptonians and can even kill them. Leon placed the kryptonite in her palm. My genetics have been altered a lot. I won't be affected by it. Since you've been touched by divine power, you might resist its radiation better. As soon as her skin met the rock, a cold sweat broke out on Kara's brow, and her expression twisted in pain. The kryptonite still took a toll. She felt strength and stamina draining rapidly. But the effect was limited. Her arm trembled, but she didn't drop the stone, nor did her posture slump. My endurance is draining fast, she gritted out. How fast? Leon asked. A few hours, and I'll probably be back to normal. Then use your divine power. Kara paused, then summoned that power. The weakness eased almost instantly. The rate of stamina loss slowed markedly. Divine power actually works. Her eyes lit, and the hard line of her mouth lifted. She activated her biofield and rose off the ground, kryptonite still in hand. Even Leon was surprised. Supergirl was floating with a piece of kryptonite, something that would have felled most Kryptonians. Her resistance was now comparable to a sun-baked Superman. Leon thought, admiring the Shazam-granted power, it had completed Diana and strengthened Kara's resistances. As long as the gods didn't reclaim it, it could be used indefinitely. Even if taken back to Marvel, it might hold. Perfect, he mused. He wondered whether he could later share this divine power with Tony, let Solomon's wisdom bless him, though Solomon's wisdom was a strange thing to consider. He tucked away the god's staff and was about to thank Shazam when the world itself began to crack apart. From the atmosphere down to the core, the planet's space-time fractured. Small, rhomboid fragments shattered away, exposing pitch-black void beyond. It felt as if an invisible grinder were tearing apart the very fabric of the earth. The four of them inside the eternal rock looked up at once. The world restart is ending. Leon's pupils narrowed as he reacted. He waved a hand and pulled Diana and Kara into his inner world. I'll see you after the restart, old wizard. I'll help you find a true successor then. I'm leaving now. Leon planned to see what the future would bring after the restart. First to take Kara to meet her cousin Superman and, incidentally, collect a sample of his blood. Then to take Diana to see a renewed Paradise Island so she could reassure the Amazons. And finally, to bring Barry his mother. With all that, he was about to activate his cross-world ability when old wizard Shazam leapt and clung to him. "Don't go!" Shazam yelled, hugging him tight. Leon was startled. "What are you doing? Aren't you supposed to turn to dust after passing on the power and go to another realm to enjoy yourself?" The old man puffed out his beard and held on to Leon's waist, glaring up at him. "The ocean of the New World will have room for this old ship of mine, kid. I'm worried you'll just run off. I gave you the power, hoping you'd deal with Darkseid one day. You want to come along and supervise me?" Leon's mouth twitched. "Wait, am I supposed to fight Darkseid?" "Shazam's duty is to protect humanity," the wizard said. "If you don't fight, who will? Darkseid doesn't need fighting. Flash can fix things by restarting a few times. You can get down now." "And what if Flash is killed? How could Flash be killed? Fine, I'll go. Stop rubbing your beard oil on my waist." "Hurry, kid, space is already coming apart." As the Eternal Rock was swallowed by the torrent of rent space, Leon and the old wizard vanished from the DCEU. Chapter 349, Escape Restart. In the boundless world, Paradise Island, freshly torn from the continental shelf, floated on a blood-red sea. The Amazon warriors stood at the cliff's edge, staring out over that vast alien ocean. "This isn't the sea that used to surround Paradise Island," one warrior murmured. "Could the world reboot be complete?" Queen Hippolyta looked up. Dozens of suns hung in the sky. She looked down at waves 1,000 meters high rolling every few seconds. They struck the shore without burning anything, lashed the cliff without causing tremors. "Have we been rebooted to the dawn of the world, before even the gods were born?" she wondered, awed by the raw, untamed power that filled the air. A thunderous voice, like stone splitting the sky, rolled down from above. "This is my world. You will stay here for now. Once things stabilize, I will send you back out." Hippolyta's ears rang. "Are you, Liang?" she whispered. She searched the horizon. The ocean seemed to go on forever. No other land was visible. Far off, two massive white pillars rose into the clouds. Where was Liang speaking from? "It is I," the voice replied. "The giant before you and the ocean below are my black light clones. While you remain here, do not jump into that sea. Every drop of water in it weighs over 1,000 tons. Diana will come for you soon," Liang added. "I'm going to cultivate for a while." At that moment, the two distant pillars moved. One after the other, they shifted, sending titanic waves towering into the sky. The shadows they cast could blot out all of Paradise Island. Hippolyta's eyes widened. She realized the pillars weren't pillars at all, but the legs of Liang's clone. Her gaze climbed along them through churned tofu-like white clouds until indistinct shapes stretched into the heavens. She could not make out anything above the legs. "Is that really Liang?" one Amazon whispered, hand over her mouth. "He must be at least 1,000,000 meters tall. Were those 100-armed giants in myths that big? Can Diana handle someone like that? He said it's a black light clone, not his true body. Maybe he's the reincarnation of Atlas." The warriors chattered in alarm and awe. Hippolyta, however, simply stared, then lowered her eyes to the blood-red sea. The ocean below was a black light clone too. Who, or what, was Liang? Far away, over the inner world's continent, Liang had landed on a plane with Diana, Kara, and Tony. But this Liang wasn't his main body. It was a black light clone that had taken the form of a meter-tall Siberian husky. Tony blinked. "You're Liang's black light clone?" "Why so formal?" the husky said, rolling his eyes in a very human way. "I am Liang. Part of my consciousness is separated." Diana and Kara grinned and reached to pet the dog. Tony leaned in, fascinated. "So this clone is like an extra hand? Like you growing an extra limb?" "Roughly," the husky said, tolerating the attention. He pointed ahead. "You can stay on this plane for now. I'll let you out once I've assessed the situation." Tony, unable to resist, pounced and hugged the husky. You really turned into a Siberian husky and you won't let me pet you? Come on, show me. Liang shook himself. Tony's hand slid off as the husky's body seemed to liquefy, becoming a writhing mass of black motes. I'm going to cultivate. Don't disturb my black light clone's cultivation. The black motes pulsed and seeped into the ground like ink into soil. Tony gaped. Wow, this black light clone can transform? Teach me, Liang, please. He pictured the possibilities. A transformable clone attending social events while his main body cultivated, or even impersonating Pepper. Endless mischief. Liang's voice came from beneath the plain, dry, and unforgiving. That ability was granted by a world consciousness. You cannot learn it. Don't daydream. No, you've got to be kidding, Tony croaked, punching the dirt in frustration. A breeze stirred the sand. Liang gave no further response. Diana and Kara had already backed more than 10 meters away, watching him with amused contempt. Tony felt socially dead. Jarvis's smooth, apologetic voice broke in. Sir, I am unable to connect to the network to order a grave for you today. Shall I command the armor to dig a custom one? Shut up, Jarvis. Tony swatted at the air, flustered. Liang, with Shazam clinging to one of his legs like a boot ornament, prepared to traverse. They first appeared at the doorstep of the Superman Louise world. An elderly wizard, the old Shazam guardian, let go of Liang's leg and straightened, mildly offended at his own earlier indignity. We're in another world? The old wizard asked, curious. Then hurry, let's go back. We'll use this world as a springboard to get to a point after the reboot, Liang explained. He suppressed the urge to kick the old man off and activated his traversal power again. In the chaotic traversal perspective, universes tumbled and timelines resorted. Moments later, the bubble of the DCEU universe stabilized. Liang checked the coordinates. I can only jump to a much later time point. Did Barry's reboot cause a bigger disturbance than we thought? Two figures vanished from the Kent farm. Inside the small, idyllic cottage, Wolf Superman rolled over in his sleep, holding Louise close. Chapter 350, Batman and the Joker DCEU Universe. Northeast Africa, north of Egypt, Kandak Kingdom. A ragged column pushed through a howling sandstorm. Thick yellow grit clung to their cloaks and skin. Their weary feet left fleeting impressions in the dunes that the wind erased a few meters later. There was no chatter among the 7 or 8 of them, only the slow, grinding sound of sand against cloth and armor. Their eyes stayed on the ground, faces hollow with exhaustion. The leader wore a long black cloak, its hem shredded. A pitch-black cowl masked half his face. 2 sharp, decorative ears jutted up from the top. Under the cowl, a chin stubbled half-white. He had 1 foot planted in the sand when he halted suddenly, listening. Then he barked, "Conceal!" They were all veterans. At the command, fatigue fell away like a cloak. Every body went flat to the sand at once. One of them peeled back his linen shroud to reveal a torso and arms of engineering, metal plates, servos, wiring. With a series of crisp mechanical clicks, his arm unfurled into a cannon. The barrel vented a blast of gas that blew a cloud of sand across the ground, swallowing the group in a yellow storm. In seconds, the travelers were invisible to anyone looking from above. Less than 30 seconds later, a swarm of locust-like drones wheeled over the dunes. They had humanoid torsos, 4 dragonfly wings, firearms clenched in mechanical hands, and crimson lenses sweeping the ground. They moved slowly, methodically. After each drone confirmed no signs of life below, the swarm drifted away toward the next ridge. When the dust cleared, several heads rose from the circle of sand. The leader scanned until the drones were a distant speck, then said in a low, hoarse voice, "Safe." They rose, sand cascading off their shoulders. The mechanical man looked up at the sky and spat out a curse of hatred. "How far to the ruins?" he asked. "Soon," the leader answered. The mechanical man shook with the sound of grinding joints as he walked closer. "We have to hurry, Batman. The world's on the brink of destruction. We don't have time." They were both a sorry sight. The leader was Bruce Wayne, Batman. The mechanical man was Victor Stone, Cyborg. Victor's body, half bred to life by the mother box, crackled with muted sparks. Some panels were scorched and warped. Batman's suit had been stripped down to a battered chest plate. The gadgets and plating that had once defined him were gone. He moved like a man carrying too much loss. A woman's voice cut through the wind, tight and raw. She was the only female with them. He killed Arthur. He controlled Superman. He wiped out most life on Earth and enslaved what was left. Running won't change that. How much longer are we supposed to run? Mara, Batman said, his tone lifting for the first time. We came here to save people. His voice dropped again. Flash is dead. We can't fall back. We need help. Flash mentioned someone, Lyon Stark, but he never showed. We had to follow Diana's last words. She told us to find Black Adam. That was her final message before she died, Batman added. Don't get emotional. Mara, once Arthur Curry's wife, glared at him like a blade. Arthur had been killed by Darkseid. Mara's grief was a living thing, raw and hot. Emotional? She snapped. Bruce Wayne, you don't even know what that means. You haven't loved anyone. Batman's exposed eyes, blue and white beneath the cowl, flicked toward her. Keep moving. The order was iron. He turned and pushed deeper into the desert. A low, sharp laugh cut across the dunes, an ugly fingernails-on-metal sound. Everyone looked except Batman. The voice belonged to the Joker. Pale paint, a mouth rimmed in crimson that made his lips look like a wound, a cheap white shirt under a commando vest. He doubled over with that horrible, jagged laughter. Little Mermaid, he croaked, switching between a falsetto and a guttural rumble. You're wrong, quack, quack. Bruce Wayne has loved. Oh, he's loved more than you could imagine. He straightened slowly and pressed a bloodless wrist to his forehead, laughing until his shoulders shook. For example, a father. He stopped laughing. His voice slid into something eerily sober. For example, a mother. Oh, and an adopted son. Everyone called him Robin, didn't they? Batman? You loved them until they were dead. Batman halted and turned, his gaze fixed only on the Joker. Think very carefully before you keep talking, he said quietly. The threat was as flat and relentless as his footsteps. The Joker grinned like someone who'd heard the perfect joke. Why so serious? So what if the world ends? Isn't this what your choices got us? Maybe the people you loved the most are gone, so why should the rest matter? You're numb, Batman. Remember Louise, how beautiful her eyes were when she died, like a shooting star? He closed his lids as if remembering pain, voice suddenly small. He sounded almost sincere. Poor Louise, she went through the worst anyone ever has. Batman closed the distance between them, expression unwritable. You're right about the numbness, he said quietly. My heart has been buried for a long time, but cross my line again. What will you do? The Joker cupped his face with both hands and put on a hurt expression. You're going to kill me? The great Batman? Don't be ridiculous. You won't. I'm your friend, your savior, your little trump card to save the world. He jabbed a finger at Batman. You couldn't even sacrifice yourself to save Louise, could you? You chose not to, and the world was ruined because of your cowardice. Poor Flash. He kept restarting the world for you, over and over, and it all ended because of you. He died for nothing. Batman's jaw tightened. He let the words hit him for a heartbeat, then snapped back. That's a lie, he said coldly. It wasn't Louise who died in my arms. It was Harley Quinn. The Joker's face flickered. Batman's voice went flat and hard. She bled out in my arms. With her last breath, she begged me to take my time when I killed you. He looked down at the Joker. Don't doubt it. One day I will kill you, and when that day comes, I will, just as Harley asked before she died, let you die slowly, little by little, in pain. Batman turned away and continued into the dunes. The Joker trembled, his shoulders sagging. For a moment he was frozen, stripped of the mask of glee. The others glanced between the two men and fell into step behind Batman. Even Mara, who had screamed moments before, had no answer. She followed in the hush he left behind. Chapter 351. Zhang is crazy. Everyone is crazy. The sky darkened as they made their way into the mountains far from Kandak's capital. Inside an ancient ruin carved into the rock, the past of long-dead civilizations spoke through weathered glyphs on the walls. Batman and the others finally reached their destination and pressed deeper into the ruins. Mara, who had lived the longest among them, could still read the old script. After all, Atlantis' desert prison had been in the Sahara not far from here. They knew the cultures that had once flourished on this land. Wizard Shah. What? He gave men magic, but their minds couldn't control such power. Mara read the faded words aloud. The ultimate power of corruption, suppressed, banished, and sealed here. And then, follow this path, and you will find the crown. What crown? She muttered, squinting. Looks like we went to the wrong place. This is it. Batman strode deeper into the passage. Diana's notes point to these coordinates. She studied humans and Earth since the 1920s. She wouldn't be off about a location, Mara said. Batman's silhouette vanished into the darkness. Mara turned to the man beside her. This world is already doomed. Even if Black Adam is here, he can only watch the world end with us, she added. We might as well go to Metropolis and take them on. Killing one more would be a kind of revenge. An old man in a golden helmet and armor, Dr. Fate, shook his head. Sometimes we must hold on to hope. Only with hope can we keep going. He followed Batman into the tunnel. Behind him, a man with an East Asian face, Kai Ruyan, patted Mara's shoulder. I think Dr. Fate's right. You have to hold hope when you're relying on luck in material research. He's right, another figure said as he passed. He was armored from head to toe. Half his armor had the orange-yellow of dried blood, the other half the deep black of congealed gore. Only his left eye showed through the mask, and it burned with cold intent, Deathstroke. Everyone goes crazy at a time like this, Little Mermaid. The Joker strolled in after them. Only lunatics run around with Batman. He's crazier than any of us. Cyborg's electronic eyes scanned the walls, mapping and storing every glyph. Dr. Fate, Adam, Deathstroke, Joker, all of you have valid points. First, we find Black Adam. Mara watched the group in silence. The hatred in their hearts was deeper than hers, darker than the seafloor, an abyss she'd felt during their long journey together. Yet these same people, tainted by hatred, still spoke of hope, of taking chances, of being mad. She alone talked of rushing straight to Metropolis to cut down Superman and then Darkseid. A sneer crossed her lips. For a moment she felt like the only woman among them. She followed the others into the passage anyway. The seven, Batman, Cyborg, Joker, Mara, Deathstroke, Dr. Fate, and Adam, were the last resistance. Outside the ruins, the world lay hollow. Kandak's capital, Greece, Jerusalem, London, Metropolis, Gotham, empty ghost towns. The air carried no life, only the clatter of steel. Occasionally, figures drifted past, hollow-eyed and soulless, moving like automatons. More common were the parademons, clinging to ruined walls with blood-red eyes. Once human, now they had insectile wings and jagged mouthparts, Darkseid's army. Their hunger always pointed toward Metropolis. At the highest point in Metropolis, Superman sat on a throne and watched the world with eyes gone red. Deep within the ruins, they found a circular cavern with two great stones at its center. Between them floated a crown, no ordinary artifact. Mara reached out and lifted it. Ancient script ran along its circlet. She read it until her voice broke. Life is the only path to death, she swore, then cursed aloud. This damn thing is a conduit to call demons from hell. It was forged by ancient monarchs who lusted for eternal rule. It will summon a demon lord like Shabak and destroy the earth, she said, eyes wide. Is this what Wonder Woman left behind? Mara's brows rose. So your plan is to summon a demon, let it fight those dog things from Apocalypse, and then destroy the world? She trailed off, then laughed bitterly. Earth was nearly lost. Summoning hellish forces to counter Darkseid's legions didn't sound entirely unreasonable in that context. It still felt insane. Batman, who had been listening, watched her without expression. Mara's gaze landed on him and froze. Could this be his plan? Is he trying to drag the world down to stop Darkseid? No, everyone here was complicit somehow. Joker had been right. They were all mad. Summoning demons? Batman said aloud, as if confirming a detail. He took the crown from Mara's hands, inspected it closely, then slid it into his bag. Life is the path to death. That suggests the crown's power is triggered by death with it on. I'll use it at the right moment. With a small clenched breath, Batman folded the idea into his list of options. For now, we keep searching for clues. I trust Diana. Mara stared at him, the warning bells in her mind growing louder. He was dangerous, more dangerous than she'd thought. Yet the others showed no hesitation. They accepted his plan almost without question. If Batman said he'd use the crown at the right time, then to them that was settled. They dispersed through the ruin, each drawn by purpose and poisoned hope. If Mara could have read their minds, she would have shouted it. They're all mad. But she kept the thought to herself and moved on with them, under a sky that was getting steadily darker. Chapter 352. He went up, he was gone. It was over, Ro. After some searching, Batman crouched between two giant boulders and found a clue. It's here. This must be an altar or a magic circle. Mara, come look. Mara stepped forward, crouched beside him, brushed the dust from the floor, and slowly read the words carved into the tiles. The strongest mortal, king of the gods, name given by 6 wizards, Shazam! Shazam! No one in the group had heard the name. Even Mara, who had lived the longest, only felt a faint sense of déjà vu. The moment the word left her lips, the ruins flared with a crackle of electricity, and everyone's faces were washed in cold white light. When the thunder subsided and the light died, all 7 had already taken cover and assumed defensive postures. No one issued orders. They were the planet's elite fighters and knew instinctively what to do. After a held breath, Batman swept his gaze across the cavern. In the space between the 2 boulders, above the magic circle, a bulky figure in black robes knelt with his back to them, as if a warrior from another age. "You are Black Adam?" Batman stood slowly. It didn't take much to deduce that Mara's words had been the incantation to release him. But why here? In the center of the stones sat the sinister crown that summoned demons. Below it, the solitary strongman sealed by ancient sorcerers. This place looked like a wizard's junkyard. The figure remained kneeling, as though sealed too long to be fully awake. Batman, listening to the change in his breathing, noted every detail like the tactical master he was. He signaled to the others. The tension in the ruins tightened like a bowstring. Cyborg's arm shifted into an energy cannon. Deathstroke drew his twin blades. Adam Kyruyan readied his size-changing power. Dr. Fate's magic bristled. Under their vigilance, the black-robed figure rose and turned his head. The face under the hood shifted from side to side. He was appraising them. This was a being waking after millennia. The first thing he did was check whether any enemies who had sealed him still lived. No one spoke, afraid a single wrong word would make him think they were his old jailers. After a long silence, the figure finally spoke, his words measured and rusty from long quiet. "Who are you?" Then, with the faint echo of a name in his voice, he said, "Shazam." "We need you." "Black Adam," Batman said quietly. "Need me?" The deep voice echoed. Mara stepped forward, voice urgent. "Earth is in crisis. We need your help to defeat him." Her words caught Black Adam's attention. "That voice, you woke me," he said, the hood slipping back to reveal a chiseled bald head and a surge of fierce power. "Yes, it's been thousands of years, Black Adam. The world is on the brink. Even Kandak, who once revered you, has been overrun by parademons." "Parademons?" Black Adam frowned. The name Kandak tugged at memory. Without warning, he rocketed into the air, tearing through the cave as the ruins shuddered. Batman's face tightened, and he gave chase. "Stop him! Too much commotion will attract that thing." But they were too late. Mara's single, impulsive remark had shattered whatever delicate plan Batman had devised to recruit Black Adam. By the time they burst out of the grotto, the noise had already drawn parademons. Black Adam struck them from above with pure lightning, shredding dozens in an instant. But from farther off, more parademons swarmed, an overwhelming black tide blotting the night sky, at least millions of them. "Get out of here now! Black Adam, come with us!" Batman shouted. Hundreds of thousands of leathery wings thrummed like a living thunderhead. Even the newly awakened conqueror, who had been remote and aloof, understood what Mara had meant by doomsday. The scale of the swarm was beyond slaughter. Not even his previous slaughter could compare. He agreed to fall back with them. Black Adam pivoted and flew away. Batman and the others retreated on the ground, struggling to keep up. Then a whistling ripped across the heavens, a supersonic descent, and a red-caped figure slammed into Black Adam midair with a concussion like a meteor. Batman and the others watched as Black Adam plummeted, a sandbag crashing into Earth and gouging a deep crater. "He's here," Batman murmured. No one dared move. Adam Kyruyan's voice trembled. "Should we help or run? Watch first." Batman drew something from his utility belt, green kryptonite, his last piece. If used against Superman, it would be decisive. If given to Black Adam in some way, it might sway the newcomer. He needed to see how strong Black Adam really was. Superman, in his dark blue suit, landed like a falling mountain into the crater. Lightning erupted from Black Adam and struck him. Superman was thrown backward, slammed by electricity. Black Adam, bloodied but still crackling with power, floated again, able to fight. Batman's eyes flashed. Hope flickered. "I'll give the kryptonite to Black Adam," he decided, pushing himself up from the rubble. Before he could act, Superman had recovered. In a blur, he surged forward, tearing through the air with a sonic boom and closing distance at impossible speed. Black Adam gathered every bolt he could summon and unleashed a devastating storm. Batman thought, his weakness is magic, he was sure of it. But Superman threaded through the lightning, closing the gaps. He drew back a fist in the air and slammed it into Black Adam's face, sending him hurtling groundward. Superman didn't stop. After a dozen supersonic strikes, each impact a battering, Black Adam's face was a mask of blood. Then Superman seized his throat between thumb and forefinger, and the hero's eyes flared crimson. Heat vision blasted from him, two searing beams cutting into Black Adam. The Resistance team watched, stunned at the ruthlessness the crimson-eyed Superman displayed. Batman flipped back, assessing. He knew how unstoppable a Superman unbound by restraint could be. Black Adam had just broken an ancient seal, and his reserves were not limitless. This confrontation was draining him. Retreat. Find another opening, Batman ordered. Cyborg, Dr. Fate, create a corridor. Get us out of here. His voice was calm but firm. He understood the stakes. Superman, in this state, was a force they could not contain, and Black Adam, exhausted and bloodied, was nearing collapse. This battle was lost. They needed to live to fight another way, perhaps to summon darker allies when the time came. Chapter 353, Batman's Escape Route. When the others saw Superman, they all felt the urge to flee. At Batman's order to retreat, Cyborg led the charge into the ruins. He blasted the cave entrance with his sonic cannon, then fired at the ground. Within seconds, he had carved a pit several meters deep and leapt down. The moment he landed, his right-hand cannon switched to a laser mode. He set to work, quickly clearing a narrow, dark tunnel down in the pit. At the same time, Dr. Fate pulled a roll of lead sheeting from the pack on his back. Though older than most of them, his magic had only grown more precise. He spread his hands. Under the control of an unseen force, the lead sheet unfurled. Earth and stone lifted and flew into place. The lead and the rock formed a crude stone shelter. Once everyone was inside, Dr. Fate sealed the pit shut. Cyborg had finished the escape passage by then. He used his laser to cut a square stone brick from the floor beneath the shelter, lifted it, and jumped inside. "Quick, get out through the tunnel," he called. But after he spoke, he didn't move. The others watched him in silence. A few seconds passed. Cyborg gently set the cut brick back in place. Then he exchanged looks with the rest of the team. In unison, the seven of them shifted to stand beneath one wall of their makeshift house, backs pressed tight against the lead-lined wall. Dr. Fate wove his magic again. With the reserved lead sheet and a controlled flow of earth, he formed another wall in front of them. It fit seamlessly into the shelter, leaving only a 30-centimeter gap between the two stone layers. The seven of them held their breath and squeezed into that thin interlayer like flattened pancakes. Batman had probably never looked so absurd, face turned sideways, lips forced into a pout. Opposite him, the Joker's mouth was pursed in exactly the same way. The two Gotham rivals stared at each other in that cramped space. For a ridiculous instant, it looked as if enemies might become friends. Only they could see the scene. If Kai Ruyan, the Chinese Atom, had been next to them, he would have joked, "Congratulations on your marriage." But aside from the Joker, no one was amused. The others were tense, serious, every one of them wired tight. Since Earth's fall, Superman's red cape, once a symbol of hope, had become a nightmare. In the past, seeing that cape brought a quiet relief, the knowledge that help might be coming. Now, the sound of wind heralding its arrival made them shudder. From Gotham to Africa, that cape followed them like a shadow. Each night, someone woke up sweating from dreams about it. If Dr. Fate had not been constantly using illusions to hide their trail, the cape would have come from dreams into reality long ago. Bang! Outside the stone shelter, the mountain suddenly exploded. The entrance Cyborg had shattered flew open. Someone had broken into the ruins. Heavy footsteps reverberated through the cavern, each step sounding like a weight on the seven of them. Superman had arrived. They all froze. Even the Joker stopped teasing Batman. With a thud, Superman threw something to the floor. "Take him back and make him submit to the great dark side," he ordered. A flap of heavy wings filled the ruin as a figure was dragged away, the sound of Black Adam being taken to Apocalypse. Even if their teeth hurt from biting down, Everyone remained silent. They could only watch Black Adam go because Superman was still hunting them. Footsteps started up again, approaching the shelter slowly. A wall of their stone house suddenly split open, and debris tumbled inward. A gloved hand reached through the collapsed masonry with a heavy slap. "Lead!" "The same Batman trick," someone muttered. They could hear Superman inside the shelter, no more than a wall away. Every one of them stopped breathing. Even with Dr. Fate masking their vitals, muscles tensed reflexively, nerves straining. It felt like a volcano about to erupt a few meters away, or like a suck of a deep-sea maw closing around them. Even Cyborg, whose body was mostly machine, felt the surge of adrenaline prickling through his systems. They listened to Superman circle inside the house. He paused at the floor where Cyborg had cut the tile, lifted the square stone brick, inspected for a moment, then jumped down into the passage. A vibration ran through the ground. Superman had left by the tunnel Cyborg had dug. For the first time in minutes, everyone let out a long breath. Phew. Mara relaxed so suddenly she nearly folded. He's gone. Bang! A heavy impact rocked the shelter. Superman descended from the sky again. The dome of the ruins collapsed like crumbling tofu. He had returned, landing in the center of the shelter. "You're still here," he said, his voice cold as ancient ice. With a roar, one wall of the stone house exploded outward. Debris and lead sheeting tumbled down as Superman began tearing the structure apart. 6 of them felt the hair on their necks stand on end. Joker, still pressed tight against Batman's face, couldn't help laughing at the Caped Crusader's strained expression. Dr. Fate grabbed Kai Ruyan's thigh and spat him down hard into a squat, signaling him to crouch. Then he himself dropped into a bowed leg stance. Superman clearly intended to dismantle the whole shelter. Dr. Fate gambled that his illusions could fool the Man of Steel, but only if no one was struck by Superman's blows. Kai Ruyan understood and tried to grab someone else for support, but the man next to him was Deathstroke in steel armor, impossible to grip. He nudged Deathstroke with his shoulder. Deathstroke flicked him a flat look and squatted. The planned signal relayed itself along the narrow gap until the last person was down. With a thunderous smash, Superman punched through the wall above their heads. They could see his familiar, rugged face looming over them. There was nothing left they could do but trust Dr. Fate. The illusion held. Half the wall collapsed, and to Superman's eyes, it looked as if the shelter had been completely exposed, yet no one was there. He frowned, puzzled. He had crawled through the passage beneath the shelter and seen no trace of Batman or the others. They had to be hiding somewhere dangerous, but the dismantled shelter gave him no leads. Frustration made his jaw tighten. Then he felt something was wrong. He had the barest hint of an inconsistency. His eyes flared red, and his gaze fixed on the remaining half of the stone wall. This is a placeholder. An attempt to fetch the chapter from thear.com/novel/8 from becoming a Superman to becoming invincible, chapter 34 failed with the following error. Fetch of tr.com/apa reader/get failed due to a network error. Failed to fetch. Leon sized up the man standing before him. He really did look like Henry Cavill, 80% at least. Even in the cave's dim light, Superman's presence couldn't be hidden. A chiseled face and a body like an ancient Greek statue. If the Discobolus bronze ever came to life, it wouldn't be more dynamic. Leon's private verdict, not inferior to me. He forced a friendly smile. Don't be so guarded, Clark. I'm a friend of your cousin. I came looking for you. Fighting crime? Superman's voice was flat. Looks like the criminals are pretty organized this time, in a cave like this. Leon's smile froze as he glanced around. Bodies littered the floor. A broken cyborg, a sluggish Joker watching, a dying Mara, Batman prone and clutching something. Batman's hands tightened around the Shabak crown. Leon realized with a cold twist in his gut that Superman's heat vision had been aimed at Batman a moment ago. The 2 giants of the League had reached a point of no return. Deathstroke lay thrown aside. Others were just spectators. Where were Flash and Wonder Woman? What had happened here? Who are you? Superman's words cut into Leon's thoughts. Before Leon could answer, the Man of Steel asked another question, cold and clipped. Before you answer me, why didn't you bring Wonder Woman and Flash to your civil war? Leon narrowed his eyes. The provocative question and Superman's tone hinted at something darker. Then Superman said, almost casually, "It seems you are not under the command of the great dark side." That sentence carried everything. Leon understood at once. This Superman was under Darkseid's control. He barely had time to react before Superman tossed Deathstroke aside like a rag and shattered the cave floor. What did it feel like to be met head-on by Superman? Leon had heard Tony and Pietro call him a monster, heard their gritted complaints about being about to die. Now he felt it. Superman punctured the sound barrier, the air itself tearing and light distorting around him. The sonic boom lagged behind as everything seemed to part, making way for his flight. Speed plus raw strength, the formula for unstoppable force. Leon's instincts rose. He flicked his body aside as Superman's fist accelerated. Then he concentrated. All his reflexes snapped to life. Bioelectric signals flooded his nervous system. The world around him slowed. From Leon's perspective, the cave and its ruined expanse seemed frozen in suspended motion. Particles hanging, debris paused midair, expressions on everyone's faces carved in terror and despair. Superman's motion, though still impossibly fast, looked almost deliberate. The rest of the world had been dilated. If this was a symptom of the last time Superman went berserk, Leon thought he knew what had fallen then. Cyborg, Dr. Fate. How many more would fall now? Would anyone survive? Leon took stock. None of the others looked mind-controlled. Joker was mad as ever, thrumming with chaotic energy. Batman was resolute in Death's grip. Deathstroke was hurt. Leon flicked his vision out past the cave, scanning the planet. What filled his eyes was a ruin. Empty cities, clouds of parademons, ships hung in the sky, tearing at the planet's crust. Humanity had been turned into parademons. No free will, only Darkseid's orders. Paradise Island and Atlantis were silent. Compared to the what-if zombie world he'd once seen, this Earth was a husk. Barry, what exactly had you reset? Fortunately, Leon saw no apocalyptian troops on the ground. Everything seemed handled by a Superman serving Darkseid. There was a grim relief in that. Talk could be had with Superman now if one got the opportunity without being incinerated first. He scanned the globe in less than a millisecond. Superman, in turn, noticed Leon's reaction speed. He adjusted his fist mid-punch and drove it toward Leon's chest. From Leon's slowed perspective, the blow still carried the weight of a normal strike. He stopped dodging and caught the punch with his left hand. With his right, he pulled a bottle of Zeus spring water from his belt and flung it to the old wizard who had appeared beside him. Then, bracing, he let Superman's momentum carry them outward, through rock, through debris, bursting out of the cave in a blinding eruption of sound and force. For everyone else, the world snapped back to painful motion. The cave vibrated like an instrument struck with a hammer. Shock waves and booming roars filled the opening. It felt as if a missile had detonated nearby. People were thrown about, ears ringing, heads dizzy. When the dust thinned, the horror on their faces didn't fade. Superman's figure had vanished from sight. Adam, having returned to human size, fought through the pain of a knife pulled from his foot and looked around helplessly. Everyone else was in bad shape, except Joker, who didn't exactly qualify as in shape. He trotted through the cave entrance with jaunty steps, deliberately stepping over Batman's prostrate form as if toying with him. He hummed a makeshift tune. "A Superman with an S on his chest, huh?" Joker said, voice light. "Looks like this world's getting interesting again. Bruce, why don't you go see the big guy you missed so much?" Batman, for once, looked even less composed than Joker. Or rather, he was a different kind of still. He sat up slowly, stared at the Shabak crown in his hands for a long beat, then slid it back into his bag. His focus snapped to the old man who had accompanied the new Superman out of the ruins. Another Superman, Batman thought. Is this the Leon Barry mentioned? He rose to his feet and watched the two newcomers carefully, every muscle coiled for what came next. Chapter 356, Zhang Hengchao, no worse than Dormammu. As Batman approached, the disheveled old man, white hair and beard nearly hiding his face, opened the jade bottle Lion had given him and sniffed it like it was a precious perfume. "You and that Superman who used to wear red, are you from the past?" Batman asked bluntly. It was his habit. Without the armor, he was a composed playboy. In the armor, he was cold, relentless, a man who saw the world in criminals and threats. His question sounded like an interrogation. Old Wizard Shazam blew on his beard and scowled. "What Superman?" That's Shazam, you idiot. He's my successor. You should call him the Great Shazam. Batman ignored the scolding and pressed on. Is Superman's name Lion Stark? Shazam! I said Shazam! Utterly foolish, the wizard barked again, glaring at Batman and then at the jade bottle in his hand. His tone changed suddenly, rough but interested. Are you injured? No. Batman replied with one word. The wizard's expression brightened at once. Then move aside. He shoved past Batman and stomped over to the limping Atom. Open your mouth. Atom blinked, confused, but complied. The old man flicked his wrist. A single drop from the jade bottle fell into Atom's mouth. Almost instantly, Atom's foot wound closed and his stamina surged back to full. My injury. It's healed, he stammered. The wizard didn't stop. He wrenched the long knife from Mara's chest and, ignoring the blood, let another drop fall into her mouth. She recovered immediately. He glanced at Dr. Fate, whose neck was broken, and shook his head. This one doesn't need saving. Nabu is protecting him. He checked on Cyborg and shook his head again. Not this one either. He's not flesh. Repairs will do. After moving through the ruins, he'd only used 2 drops. He carefully sealed the jade bottle, tucked it into his pocket, and smiled with satisfaction. Lion had given him the bottle because it was brimming with life force, meant to save people. The people were saved. That was that. The wizard patted his backside and hurried out of the ruins. Mara and Atom looked at each other in stunned relief. Cyborg twitched a smile. I'm pretty sure that thing would be useful to me too. But the wizard was gone. Cyborg crawled to his lower body and began trying to repair himself manually. Batman, thoughtful, walked over and handed Cyborg the detached lower half. I'll go out and assess. That new Superman might match Clark. I'll find a way to help with Kryptonite. Batman stubbornly refused to call Lion Shazam. Deathstroke immediately said, I'll go too. Atom and Mara followed. In the cave, only Cyborg, busied with repairs, and Dr. Fate, his neck still wrong, remained. Outside the ruins, Joker sat on a boulder, legs crossed, watching. The old wizard stomped and shouted to the sky, Transform into Shazam and fight him, you brat! Transform into Shazam! Shazam is invincible. Everyone had witnessed the battle that had just unfolded in the sky, even faces that had seen Doomsday pale in comparison. The heavens had been ripped open, clouds scattered, the light itself bent. 2 dazzling figures collided so high they were almost out of sight. Each impact unleashed a tremendous shockwave, a 100-mile shock that slammed down across the land like an apocalyptic bell. Boom, boom, boom. The strikes weren't constant, but each one made the earth tremble. Is this Superman's true power? It's practically the end of the world. Mara gasped. The Atom was equally shaken. We couldn't stand against Superman, but he's holding his own. Deathstroke removed his helmet. This isn't necessarily good. Batman frowned. The atmosphere can't sustain them fighting like that. They'll destroy the entire ecosystem. He wanted to support the new Superman, but at that scale of combat, they couldn't even approach. Then what can we do? Atom said, bracing against the shaking ground. To stop him, you must fight him. Fighting will destroy the ecosystem, but not fighting will destroy Earth itself. As they debated, the thunder of impact above suddenly stopped. Mara looked up. Why did they stop? Did the battle end? No, Batman and the old wizard said together. They left Earth. They went to fight outside the human world. The wizard lamented, thumping his chest. That brat still won't transform into Shazam. With Solomon's wisdom to guide him, he'd have another edge. He'd stand a better chance. He wasn't talking about Shazam's other powers now, only about seeing Lion transform into the champion and save Earth that way. But Lion had made his choice. Out in space, Lion had slammed Superman into the moon, kicking up dust across the cold surface. Superman's suit was in tatters and his eyes poured heat vision. Lion met him with the same. Crimson rays clashed as Superman reeled, blasted in the chest, and letting out a pained cry. In Void, Lion could use more of his power. On Earth, he'd been careful, using his biofield to limit collateral damage. Here in space, he didn't hold back. Of all I've fought, your strength ranks second, Lion said. For him, the first place belonged to Dormammu, the dark dimension entity who put everyone else in perspective. If Wanda ever faced Superman, it would depend on the opening moves. Odin had only traded a brief skirmish. In Lion's book, Superman at full power was second only to Dormammu. Superman blew blood from his mouth, rose from a lunar crater, wounded but healing under the sun. "You only rank second among those I've encountered," he replied, then charged again, faster than before. In space, his speed and power combined could have shattered the moon. Lion met the punch with his left hand and didn't move. Then he countered, sending Superman crashing into the moon again. "Again!" he urged. They fought from the moon toward Mars, each clash spitting high-energy streams of aftermath, heat vision, and freezing breath streaking across the void. As a true Superman, Clark kept growing during the battle. His strength climbed until he was unleashing forces on the scale of trillions of tons. Lion, too, reveled in the fight. Even not at true full power, the thrill of combat thrilled him in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. When Lion finally came back down to Earth, Superman was unconscious, his navy blue uniform reduced to rags at his waist. Lion carried him back through the sky, relief and adrenaline still on his face. Lion had noticed something else in the course of the fight. Compared to Dormammu, whose regeneration depended on channeling energy through the dark dimension, Superman's solar-powered healing at close range recovered him faster in ordinary space. Outside the dark dimension, Dormammu's energy-based recovery was actually somewhat inferior to a Kryptonian soaking in sunlight. Lion had appreciated that fact as he brought Clark home. "I couldn't retrieve the chapter from that URL. Please paste the chapter text here, and I'll correct it." Lion had no idea that from the moment they first met, Batman was already working out how to counter him. He watched Adam, who had fallen back onto his knees gasping, and said, "I rushed back as soon as I heard you were in trouble." "It seems I arrived just in time," Adam managed. If it weren't for the danger the people of Earth were still in, Lion would have kept fighting Superman a while longer. Amid Adam and Mara's exclamations, "You came just in time! So powerful!" Lion slowly set the corrupted Superman down on the sand and eased him onto his back. Then, almost casually, he released his world power. It expanded like a blanket around the globe and incinerated the last of the Parademons in an instant. No matter how many Apocalypse-modified soldiers remained, they were meaningless to Lion now. Wiping them away cost him nothing. "There won't be any Parademons on Earth for now," he said. "Not until the enemy sends another wave." His gaze swept the assembled heroes, Batman and his team included. "I imagine you can update me on what's going on?" They had made a makeshift camp on the sand dunes, tents pitched in a rough circle. Lion released Tony and Diana from his inner world. They had regained consciousness. After introductions, everyone settled around a bonfire. Lion and his group sat on one side, Batman's team on the other. Dr. Fate was awake. Cyborg, with Tony's help, had repaired his lower half enough to move. Batman had placed Kryptonite on Superman's chest. Even lying by the fire and being warmed, the corrupted Superman sweated and shivered. "Barry told me about you," Batman said. "He said Lion Stark can cross resets and stop Superman." Batman's cowl made him look like a shadow against the night. "That's right. His mother is with me. Speaking of which, I still need to return Alan to him." Lion frowned. "But he already sacrificed himself, didn't he? I searched the whole Earth after the reset and couldn't find him." Batman was quiet for a beat, then nodded. Lion's expression fell. He had taken someone's mother away, only to find that when he returned her, the person she belonged to was gone. "How did he sacrifice himself?" Tony interrupted. "Barry's power is the Speed Force. Who could kill him?" Tony had been eager when he came out of the inner world, filling his lungs with the new air the reset had produced and wanting to shout, "Uncle Tony is back!" Instead, the air smelled like smoke and rot. After hearing the rough outline of the reset, both Diana and Tony wore harder, darker expressions. "Barry, Superman killed him," Batman said. "Superman," Tony exploded. "He went out to find Kryptonite for the Resistance," Batman said. "Superman detected him. To keep the Resistance from being exposed, Barry tried to lead Superman away. And then, the Kryptonite Barry found was rigged with a tracking device," Batman said. "Every time he shook Superman off, Superman could still find him." He watched the fire, its light trembling in his eyes. Barry ran out of stamina. Superman caught him and killed him. A cold wind swept across the dunes, making cloaks snap. Tony stared at the inert Superman in front of them in disbelief. "That chattering kid killed by Superman?" Kara's face went taut. "Is this the Kal-El from after the reset? Is he really being controlled?" Batman nodded. Kara sagged inwardly. Before the reset, her cousin had been killed by Zod. After the reset, Kal-El was under Darkseid's control. It felt like everything had been reset for nothing. Killing the Flash first in this whole sequence, that complicates things, Tony said quietly. Lion's concern went elsewhere. By the way, did Barry get his father acquitted and released earlier? Batman looked surprised. He was released. Cyborg helped restore the supermarket surveillance footage. There was a clear image of Barry's father that provided an alibi. Why? He won the case? Lion covered his face with a hand. That's the problem. In the original timeline, the surveillance didn't capture his father, so he couldn't be acquitted. If he was acquitted, then Barry did change the past, and the world has shifted. It seems Barry didn't listen to me, Lion said with a shake of his head. So, Batman said slowly, we're not in the proper timeline? Lion nodded. Yes, but whether it's the correct timeline doesn't much matter anymore. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything that led to this. Batman obliged. Darkseid's invasion didn't begin by itself. It started with a global shift, an alliance, and a war. You mean the Red Alliance? Lion asked, startled. That's different, Batman explained. Back in World War I, an Eastern power suddenly rolled out powered steel battle armor, rudimentary but effective. It allowed them to win decisive victories. By the 1990s, most nations had joined a coalition centered on that Eastern power, the Red Alliance. Lion absorbed that, stunned. Could Barry's changes have kept that power from collapsing? Had Lion's earlier interference, his tech and armor, survived the reset in ways other changes didn't? Batman continued. The island nation in Asia we thought had sunk didn't. During World War II, they were defeated and folded into the Red Alliance as a subordinate state. That explains it, Lion murmured. His influence on the island had been erased by the reset, but the battle armor and technology he'd given, likely from other universes, had persisted. Or Barry's alterations had created an entirely new divergence. Diana interjected, worry in her voice. What about Paradise Island? The Amazons? Batman's head bowed. There are Amazons. There was another Diana. They all sacrificed themselves. Killed by Superman? Kara demanded. Not entirely. Batman shook his head. Everything has to be told from the start. He narrated the thread. In the 1980s, a Kryptonian ship landed in Kansas, and Superman was adopted by the Kents, classic origin. But America's violence and materialism made the Kents move to the Red Alliance to give Kal-El a better environment. Lion couldn't resist a dry quip. Red Sun, huh? Maybe, Batman conceded. Superman lived among ordinary people until the Kryptonian fleet returned and his identity was exposed. He defeated the fleet, saved Earth, and became its hero. The Red Alliance allied with him. Together, they pushed the world toward what they called a great society. Batman's voice turned hard. But not everyone trusted an alien god among humans. Some feared him. Others believed humanity shouldn't bow to a god. Let me guess, the former was Lex Luthor. The latter was you, Lion cut in. Batman didn't answer directly. Luthor and I worked together and nearly killed Superman. And you stopped. Kara's voice trembled. Because before he died, Superman called out for his parents and his girlfriend. I realized then he wasn't a god. He was a person. More human in some ways than I am. He lowered his voice. Facts proved I was wrong. People on Batman's side looked subdued, except the Joker, who smiled like a mad child. To protect Superman, the Red Alliance declared war on America. When Superman sacrificed himself, the war hadn't yet consumed everything, but Earth lost its greatest guardian. A mother box opened a boom tube. Steppenwolf arrived. In that war, the Red Alliance was routed. Luthor's forces were routed as well. Superman was resurrected and defeated Steppenwolf. He saved the world, at least for a time. Batman's eyes were distant. But that was only the beginning. He inhaled, and the firelight carved hard lines into his face. Luthor, determined to dismantle the Red Alliance and kill Superman, opened a boom tube with a mother box. Chapter 359, Luthor's Sin. Lex Luthor opened the boom tube, but that wasn't his original intention. I spoke with him before he was killed by Superman. To fight Steppenwolf, superheroes, including Superman and me, formed the Justice League. What Luthor really wanted was to dismantle every organization that could protect Superman, then kill Superman. The Red Alliance and the Justice League were both his targets. Even I found it hard to imagine one man could go so far just to kill Superman. Batman began to recount the divisive, terrible plan Luthor had put into motion. Luthor first found a master poisoner who had survived World War I. Her name was Dr. Poison, one of Ares' subordinates. She harbored a grudge against Wonder Woman, and Luthor used that grudge to pull her into his scheme. Next, he had Aquaman's enemies freed from Atlantis' desert prison, Orm, the Atlantean prince, and the mercenary Black Manta. He had Dr. Poison develop a toxin lethal even to demigods and used it to kill Diana. He then sent Orm and Black Manta back to Atlantis to seize power from Arthur. Meanwhile, Luthor himself declared war on the Red Alliance to tie up military forces. At the same time, he analyzed part of the anti-life equation etched into Earth's surface. His real goal was to control or even kill Superman using the anti-life equation. Batman ran through Luthor's history in one breath. Mara and the others listened, stunned. They hadn't known any of this. A string of curses escaped from their lips. Batman rested his chin on his hands and continued. Activating the anti-life equation requires energy. Luthor once used a mother box's power to transform a Kryptonian corpse into Doomsday, so he had Orm hand over the mother box, guarded by Atlantis, one of the three. He activated it, intending to trigger the anti-life equation. No one could have predicted the mother box would open a boom tube directly. Darkseid came through himself. Hearing that name, everyone fell silent. Darkseid stirred a helplessness in them, like watching the world slide toward destruction and being powerless to stop it. And then? There's no way Darkseid was under Luthor's control, right? Tony asked. No, Batman said. Darkseid snatched the portion of the anti-life equation that Luthor had. What? Tony sprang to his feet. The anti-life equation? You mean that anti-life equation, the thing that can dominate the free will of every living being in the multiverse, is now in Darkseid's hands? Only a portion, Batman replied. You know a lot about it. Tony's neck flushed with urgency. He had the sudden urge to grab Leon and bolt back to the Marvel side. It's only a portion, but it's still the anti-life equation. That's the supreme power of your universe, Batman said. It maps the logic of all spiritual worlds and can control the minds of anyone who comes into contact with it. It can control anyone who comes into contact with it? Not necessarily, Tony said, his tone shifting. He looked at Batman with a crooked smile, as if reminded of something. There is a way to resist, one that only really works for you. Me? Yes. When Darkseid tries to control you, if you say to him, I am Batman, you shouldn't be controlled. Batman stared at the man as if considering a diagnosis. Leon laughed. Tony, maybe if you say, I am Iron Man to Darkseid, you'll be safe too. Ha! If I had the Soul Stone in my head, I definitely wouldn't be controlled, Tony replied, half joking. Leon shook his head. In fact, an incomplete anti-life equation can sometimes be resisted by sheer will. Batman thought of Clark. Clark showed signs of struggle when he was controlled. He had the power to resist. It's just that. It's just that Louise's death weakened his will to resist, Batman finished, nodding in the gloom. Keep going. What did Darkseid do after he got the equation? Tony asked. Batman sat back down. Luthor saw how bad things were and lied to Darkseid. He told him that with the anti-life equation, he could easily kill Superman, guiding the two aliens into fighting so both would suffer. Darkseid refused. He didn't want Superman dead. He wanted him broken and made to submit. Apocalypse's army launched a full-scale invasion, and the war began. The Justice League assembled to meet them. Superman sent his pregnant Louise to the Batcave to be protected by me and Harley Quinn. Terrible memories rose like bile. Batman closed his eyes. Superman thought he would meet Darkseid on the front lines, but that tyrant, who had seen Superman and Steppenwolf fight, adopted Luthor's suggestion that Superman's weakness was Louise. Darkseid personally attacked the Batcave. Louise died under the Omega beams. Harley Quinn died in my arms. Batman's voice went low and rough, as if his throat were being scraped by a blade. At that moment, the Joker burst into hysterical laughter, wild, sorrowful, incoherent. He laughed until his sides ached, and he doubled over coughing, tears glinting in his eyes under the moonlight. Batman stopped and stared at him for a few seconds before continuing. When Superman rushed back to the Batcave, he cradled Louise's remains. All her flesh and blood had evaporated. He had a breakdown, and Darkseid took that opening to take control of him. After that, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, and other heroes fell to Darkseid one by one. The entire Earth fell. Darkseid merged the three mother boxes into one, transformed nearly all Earthlings into parademons, and left Superman to watch over them. To get at the anti-life equation etched into Earth's crust, he sent his fleet to drain the planet's core. Batman stared into the distance. Those ships are still operating even now. Earth is almost a hollow shell. Silence hung over them. Kara and Diana listened with trembling hearts. Neither had ever faced such a tyrant, such a butcher. They had only just entered human society and already encountered a force that razed worlds and exterminated civilizations. Tony, meanwhile, thought of Thanos. Compared to Darkseid, even Thanos seemed grand, even righteous. At least Thanos had an ideology. Darkseid slaughtered for domination alone. This is a placeholder. I attempted to fetch the chapter from http://ken/novel 8h novel Fly 3A Superman, a Superman to becoming invincible / chapter 360, but the request failed with the following error. Error, fetch of URL trb.com/aprena/get, failed due to a network error, failed to fetch.